Hey there everyone, AJ back again for the Mighty Glue Stick channel. I make videos about Dungeons & Dragons lore full-time and have a collection of hundreds of monster ecology and strategy videos on my channel. If you like what I do, please consider subscribing as I upload at least twice a week. Today, something a little bit different. I'm going to talk about how effective a very strong character is in combat. Specifically non-armed combat when they don't have a weapon on them. Specifically, we're talking about rules for choking, the use of a garrote, and a variant build on the rogue I like to call the thug. There are a lot of situations where it pays to know your unarmed combat rules. Bar fights, arguments that turn violent. The Dungeon Master needs to handle unarmed attacks, wrestling moves, throws, thrown objects, improvised weapons, confined spaces, and choking someone. Let's start with choking, as it got a lot of interest in my last video on the Revenant. To make a choke, first the character uses up one of their attack actions to roll a strength athletics check. They need at least one hand free to do this, and the target can be no more than one size category bigger than they are. The character's athletic result is contested by the target's athletics or acrobatics check, so strength or dexterity. This means it completely bypasses their armor class. If they manage to lock on, the target is now grappled, which means they have their speed become 0. They can't benefit from any bonuses to their speed. However, when the grappler moves, they can drag or carry the grappled creature with them, but their speed is halved unless the creature being grappled is 2 or more size categories smaller than they are. So in the case of a medium humanoid, that would have to be a pixie or something, but a large minotaur could carry around a gnome, and a Garistro demon could carry around a human. Page 183 of the Player's Handbook is where we concentrate, and that states that a creature can deliberately hold its breath for a number of minutes equal to 1 minute plus its constitution modifier in minutes, with a minimum of 30 seconds. However, when a creature runs out of breath, or it never got a chance to hold their breath, they can survive for a number of rounds equal to their constitution modifier, with a minimum of 1 round. Now that's 6 seconds. At the start of the next turn, they drop to 0 hit points and are dying. So they now will be unconscious and start to make saving throws versus death. This leaves a grey area around the question of holding their breath, and avoids talking about the supply of blood to the brain being restricted by the crushing grip on the neck from the choke grapple. There is further clarification, and a definition of choking is included in the entry on suffocation and choking found in D&D Beyond, which always has the most up-to-date official rules as written. It says that when a creature runs out of breath or is choking, it can survive for a number of rounds equal to its constitution modifier with a minimum of 1 round. At the start of its next turn, it drops to 0 hit points and is dying, and can't regain hit points or be stabilized until it can breathe again. Now, turning to one official bit of rules concerning a creature specifically designed for this form of combat, the aptly named Choker from Mordenkainen's Tome of Phones, and keep in mind that the Choker is a small creature, so it has limbs that can deliver a bludgeoning and piercing grip attack that says that if a target is a large or smaller creature, it is grappled. Escape DC is 15 in this particular case. Until this grapple ends, the target is restrained, and the Choker can't use this tentacle on another creature. If this attack is a critical hit, the target also can't breathe or speak until the grapple ends. This attack is difficult to work out, but it helps to interpret the situation. For instance, if the Choker attacks by surprise, which really is what they're designed to do, with a stealth bonus of +6 and the ability to scuttle around in tight spaces in the Underdark, it's basically making a sneak attack, rolling with advantage as the target is unaware the attack is coming. If the Choker gets that critical hit in right away, there is no way for the target, logically, to take a deep breath and hold it as the Choker gets a grip laid on them, which means they are now restrained and choking. A restrained creature's speed becomes 0, and it can't benefit from any bonus to its speed. And attack rolls against the creature have advantage, and the creature's attack rolls have disadvantage. Plus, the creature has disadvantage on dexterity saving throws, so it makes sense that they try to escape that choke using either their raw strength or hope an ally or an explosion or something else tears that choker off them before they fall unconscious and die pretty quickly. This sneaky attack method immediately makes me compare it to a rogue's combat advantages and the expertise at landing sneak attacks. So we have a way to bypass the target's armor class, a real advantage for a rogue with extraordinary strength, and a deadly combat maneuver to silently take out someone in just 1 or 2 rounds, unless it's an individual with an amazing constitution bonus. Even if the target is not restrained and getting disadvantage on the dexterity based checks to break free of the choke grapple, even if they're not granting advantage on further attacks against them or getting disadvantage on attack rolls on the rogue who is strangling them, they're in serious trouble nonetheless. Let's take a look at the very common item that an assassin or rogue would carry around with them. You don't really see it very much in Dungeons & Dragons, and we really should. It's a shortish loop of strong cord with a slip knot, or 2 handles such as bits of wood and a short bit of cord or wire between them, known as the garrote. We do have a rule for using this as a weapon. Take a look at the official variant of the Ettercap monster in the core monster manual on page 131. It says a web garrote is a melee weapon attack that requires the attacker has advantage on the attack roll. So, a sneak attack basically. It does 1d4 plus strength modifier and bludgeoning damage, and the target is grappled. Until this grapple ends, the target can't breathe, and the attacker has advantage on attack rolls against it, so the garrote grants the benefit of the target being restrained, to a limited extent, and I think any reasonable person would say that the target of that attack is being choked. What it doesn't convey very well, I think, is that breaking free of the garrote attack is really quite difficult, which is why it's a pretty popular way to kill people back in the day, and still gets a lot of use these days, I can only imagine. If the strength specialist rogue, who I like to call the thug, is infiltrating an area and wants to take out the guards quietly, climbing around, looping the noose around the guard's neck and hoisting them off the ground with his superior strength is a great way to do it. As a DM, maybe once or twice a guard will have training to draw their weapon and maybe strike at the rope or the rogue, but for the most part, no, the natural instinct will be for them to grab at the cord about their neck as their feet leave the floor, and it's all over all too quickly. That about covers choking, so let's take a look at the 2 feats that greatly increase a character's effectiveness in unarmed combat. First, there is Grappler. In order to take this feat, the character must have a strength of 13 or higher, and essentially, they have either been trained or gained hard-earned experience in all the skills necessary to hold their own in close quarters grappling. They have advantage on attack rolls against a creature they are grappling, so the grapple is more like a restraining maneuver. In other words, they just lock them up with a wrestling hold. They can use their action to try to pin a creature grappled by them, so to do so they basically make another grapple check. If they succeed, they and the creature are both restrained until the grapple ends. The next important feat is called Tavern Brawler and represents a character has become accustomed to the rough and tumble fighting used whenever using whatever weapons come to hand. Pool cues, bar stools, frying pans, billiard balls and so on. They increase their strength or constitution score by 1 to a maximum of 20. They are considered proficient with improvised weapons, so they add their proficiency bonus to attack rolls. Their unarmed strike uses a d4 for damage, instead of just doing 1, and normally a character who makes an unarmed attack adds their proficiency to the attack roll, and it just does 1 point of damage plus their strength modifier. Effectively, everybody's proficient in using their hands and feet to attack. The Tavern Brawler has the option on their turn, if they hit with an unarmed strike or an improvised weapon, to use a bonus action to attempt to grapple the target. So it pairs up really well with the grappler maneuver, or the grappler feat. Now, why would a strength 13 or higher be a prerequisite for grappler? Well, the average adult weight of an adult human is 137 pounds, that's 62 kilograms, which means in order to throw that person, you would need a strength of 13 or higher. I'm not talking about just picking up and carrying a person, I mean hoist them entirely off the ground and hurl them far enough to cause them damage on impact. So it's reasonable to say that a person who has taken the grappler feat is capable of throwing a medium-sized opponent with enough force to inflict 1d6 points of falling damage, and the target is going to land prone. Interesting note here, even creatures that are immune to non-magical bludgeoning damage will still take damage from a fall. This is directly quoted from Jeremy Crawford in his questions and answers commentary. So we have covered unarmed attacks, wrestling moves, throws, and choking. The rules for improvised weapons and throwing things not designed to be thrown weapons are really easy and covered in your player's handbook, nothing confusing there. But what comes next is something so often overlooked in brawl brawls and fights in confined spaces. That is the combat while squeezing rules, or squeezed. It says a creature can squeeze through a space large enough for a creature one size smaller than itself. When squeezing through a space, a creature must spend 1 extra foot of movement for every foot it moves there, and the creature has disadvantage on attack rolls and dexterity saving throws. Also, attack rolls against it have advantage. In a bar brawl situation, the main thing to keep in mind is that a crowd of densely packed people provides cover when opponents are occupying a space with a non-opponent. Flailing about wildly and attempting to punch everybody is far less effective than you would think. Clever fighters will make use of the bystanders and chaos of bodies moving around to provide them with half cover, and if a character is attacking someone standing behind or in the same space as someone else, they have half cover from that attack, which means they have a +2 bonus to their armor class and dexterity saving throws against that attacker. Finally, using the crowd as a sort of a weapon is possible. By shoving hard and causing the press of bodies to shove and press into someone, they will become restrained. The effect to get out of that situation is just to make a strength athletics checks to physically push people back, with a difficulty class of, I would say, at least 13. Of course, the crowd will not stay crushed up as each person untangles himself. Whoever is restrained there will soon be set free, but for at least that next round, they will be facing attackers who have advantage against them, even as they have partial cover. Or half cover, I should say. Knocking them out cold is not so easy in D&D though. The rules say that when an attacker reduces a creature to 0 hit points with a melee attack, the attacker can knock the creature out. It's a declared option. This attacker can make the choice the instant the damages are dealt. The creature falls unconscious and is stable. This also applies to choking someone until they are simply unconscious. You don't have to kill them. Okay, that covers a lot of ground I think. If you found this useful, please hit the like button, subscribe if you like what I do, check out my Patreon for some exclusive content and all the full script for these videos, buy some merchandise, wear your geek with pride, check out Patron Blades for a mighty smooth shave, and as always, thanks for listening, and I'll be back with more for you very soon, and I look forward to all your comments down in the comment section down below, because I think this sort of topic needs a lively debate and discussion and clarification of the rules. Since 5th edition is a relatively rules-light system, sometimes the action falls between the cracks. Catch you later, everyone.